Okay, here we are with the Bersa Thunder. I want to make sure this is clear before we get into it. Notice that clearing the chamber, and we have a snap cap. We're going to remove that just to make sure there's no live rounds. And what we're going to talk about is when the gun is empty and you insert the magazine. There's 3 different ways you can get that slide forward. And I'm going to talk about what I think is the best way and what I think is probably one of the worst ways. There's 3 ways you can do this. And I got a list here because I want to talk about several things with each method. Okay. So on this one right here, all you have to do is hit the slide stop, slide release. Okay. And you're back in action. Now, a lot of people say it's a slide stop. A lot of people say it's a slide release. Okay. You ever seen a hammer? You notice how a hammer has a claw on the other side? A hammer can be a nail puller and a hammer at the same time. Same thing with this. It's a slide stop and it's a slide release. You can use it as both. So that ends that conversation on whether it's a slide stop or slide release or whatever. It's both. Okay, this method, when you hit the slide stop, slide release, it's going to go home. And the thing is that you're going to have 2 hands on the gun when it goes home. You want this grip here. You don't want the thumbs forward grip. So when you hit that, you're still going to have 2 hands on the gun. Okay? And the other thing is the gun is going to be facing the threat. So if I hit this after I load that magazine, if I hit this, okay, that's going to go forward, but I don't have to adjust myself anyway. I can have the gun facing the threat. And then I can hit the slide stop, slide release, okay? Another thing is I can punch out without waiting with one hand. If I put that magazine in and this hand has something else to do, I can punch out, I can hit that slide stop release, and I can get in action with one hand. And this is why it's one of the best methods. Okay, no block of ejection port. Okay, what that means is what I'm doing here when I hit that slide stop, slide release, I don't have to worry because I'm not blocking the port when I do that. So what this is basically a simple way to get the gun back in the fight after you've gone dry, you've inserted a new magazines. That's the easiest way to get the gun back in action. Okay, now let's try slingshot. Slingshot, you would be like this, and what you would do is you would grab right here, okay, for slingshot. And with slingshot, you have one hand on the grip because this hand has to move in order to slingshot the weapon, to get around in the chamber. So you have one hand on the grip instead of 2. Okay, the gun is facing the threat, which is nice. Even though the gun's sideways instead of this way, the gun sideways, it is facing the threat. So that's good, okay? You're just sideways rather than up and down like this. Okay, when you punch out, okay? When you punch out like this with the slingshot movement, okay, when you're slingshotting it like this, you have to wait and grab the slide, pull it back, and then push and pull at the same time. So I'm pushing and pulling at the same time like that. So I'm going like that, okay? So you do have to wait. So you're still going to only have one hand on the gun instead of 2. And that's why that first method I was showing you got 2 hands on the gun. So if something happens where you're struggling with somebody, you only got one hand on the gun, whereas this method, you have both hands tight on the gun. You see what I'm saying? So once again, the gun is facing the threat, although it's probably in this position right here, okay? And in order to punch out, once again, you have to grab this, pull, and push at the same time. And the other thing, it's 3 steps. So you got here, you got 1, 2 is pull back, and 3 is let go. So you got 3 steps that you have to master on that one. Okay, now here's the worst one. Now I'm saying slingshot's fine if you get used to slingshot. I think that it's fine because the gun is at least still facing the threat. But here's the worst one of all: overhand. The problem with overhand is you have one hand on the grip, okay, because you have to use this hand to go like this. All right. So you got one hand on the grip instead of 2. Okay, and the gun, most likely, if you see people that do overhand, most likely the gun's always facing this direction. But where do we want that muzzle? We want that muzzle facing the threat. So you don't see people doing this. They're usually like this. So this method here isn't even facing the enemy while you're trying to overhand it, okay? Gun's not facing threat. Okay, another thing is punching out. When you're punching out doing overhand like this, same thing, you have to wait until you grab the slide and push, pull, and then go forward. Okay, you still have to wait. So unlike the first method that I was mentioning, where you just hit the slide, stop, release, you got 2 hands on the gun. This one also, like slingshot, you have to have 2 hands on the, or you have to have 1 hand on the gun so you can free up this hand, your left hand, to then go like this. And most people don't do it like this where it's facing the threat. Most people do it where it's kind of like at an angle like this. So, and the other thing is, notice that you can block the ejection port right here. Notice my fingers, I could possibly block that ejection port. So that's why overhand is the worst. Slingshot is fine for this, or like I said, just hitting the slide, stop, slide, release like I would do. I know there's some Israelis that would say, I've been doing it this way forever. Yeah, and that's fine if you practice that way. But we'll all agree that overhand is the worst because there's more risk of not getting the gun in battery because of the fact you're blocking the ejection port. And if you miss going like this, there's not enough to grab onto here. If you miss doing something like this, you can't get the gun working, okay? Whereas slingshot, you can really grab a lot of the gun right here and pull it back, and you push with your right hand, okay? And pull with your left like that real hard. You can get that gun punched out a lot better. So the overhand, same thing, you got 3 steps, okay? The first method that I was telling you about, hitting the slide, stop, slide, release, we can just hit that and we can go for it, okay? Even with 1 hand, I don't even need 2 hands to do that. Once the magazine's in, I can just go like that, okay? Whereas a slingshot, if you're here, now you have to go here. If you're overhand, if you're here, now you have to go here. So you got 3 steps for each of them. So 3 steps for overhand would be like this. I inserted the magazine. Now I have to go up, grip the back of the gun. Okay, that's step number 1. Step 2 is pull it. And then step 3 would be release it as I'm pushing and pulling at the same time. So you got 3 steps there, okay? 3 steps on slingshot, 3 steps on overhand, 1 step right here, which is hitting the slide, stop, slide, release, which I can do with 1 hand. So if I'm in combat, close quarters, and I got to use this hand for pepper spray, a knife to guide somebody to safety, or so on and so on, I can get this gun going, okay? Whereas if you need this hand to always be dependent, or if you need this, if your right hand's always got to be dependent on your left, it's going to slow things down. Because here you are needing 2 hands when you really only needed 1, so you could get that gun back in action. Because close quarters events, attacks and stuff like that are most common for most private citizens and even some law enforcement. So you don't have enough time when somebody's in your zone to start doing things with 2 hands. It's better if you have 1 hand where you can get that gun out, fire right away, rather than trying to, like this thumbs forward grip crap right here. That is the worst thing ever because you're depending on your left hand to make that little puzzle. See, and if it doesn't happen, then somebody can grab the gun. See how loose it is? Not only that, you can hit the slide stop, slide release. You could mess that up. You could mess up the safety. Your thumb could ride the slide, what they call riding the slide. If you bump your thumb, I realize you can ride the slide sometimes, but you bump your thumb or something, you're going to throw that gun out of battery. So once again, we have three methods here. Okay, so here I am. I've got the magazine in, and I'm going to just hit that slide stop, slide release, and go forward. I'm going to punch forward, and I can do that with one hand if I want to. So I'm going to punch forward. Okay, I'm ready to shoot. See what I mean? Okay, now let's do it slingshot so I can demonstrate that for you. And I'm not crapping on slingshot. I'm just saying that that wouldn't be my method. I mean, the Israelis have a certain way, you know, if you carry without a round in the chamber, you might have a certain method that you can do to get lined up with the target, make sure that you're point shooting in the right direction. You're lined up like this and chest level so that you're going to hit the person's chest. So I understand that. Okay, so slingshot, you got a magazine in here, right? Okay, push pull. I'm out, ready to fire. Like that. Push with the right, pull with the left. I'm out. Chest level. Okay, center of mass, chest the opponent that way. Point shooting. You probably don't even necessarily have to use the sights. If you were going to use the sights, you'd go like this. So you'd go from this position to that position, this position to that position. But close quarters, you could practice like this, where you just punch out. And since your chest is here, you're going to hit their chest punching out this direction without even aiming. So there's that method. Okay. And then let's do the overhand method. So we'll clear this out. Okay, so overhand, I got something in. Okay, I got the magazine in. I'm coming like this, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I'm not blocking the ejection port, but I'm going to pull with my left and push with my right. Okay, there I am. Now that's really easy to do with Glocks, but some pistols it's very hard to do because you could block the ejection port and stuff like that. So the way to run this Bersa Thunder is pretty much the two methods, which is hit your slide stop, slide release once you have a round ready to go. So once again, we're assuming that you're out of ammunition. You're in a gunfight. Let's say you're out of ammunition and you need to get a new magazine in. Okay, that's what the gun's going to look like right there. I can simply go like this now. Or I could do slingshot like this. Or I could do overhand, but notice the gun would be probably tilted a little bit, so I'm not facing the enemy. So I could go like this. See what I mean? So this gets me closer to my objective than anything else. And it's not bashing on slingshot, because we use slingshot with AR-15s. We got to pull the bolt back. So I understand slingshot is common and it's practiced quite a bit, but the thing is that we have to understand how we're going to run this thing without making any mistakes. Because even one little mistake on doing something, for instance, like this, you know, you're not going to be able to get the gun ready to rock and roll. You know what I mean? Whereas slingshot would be okay, or even easier, just hitting that slide stop, slide release. Okay. Now some guns, they might not have a big slide stop, slide release. They might have just a little tiny tab here. But even them, like on my Glock 20 Gen 4 10 millimeter, I have a small one right here, and I can hit that every time with my thumb. I don't know why other people can't. So a lot of people buy what they call extended slide release, okay? And that's got a bigger bump on it so you can hit it, okay? But I don't have any problems with it because I never miss it, so haven't missed it yet. So if you push yourself at high speed levels beyond knowing your own capability, that's where you have malfunctions with guns too. It's because you're pushing yourself. It's okay to push yourself to go fast, but at the same time, you want to demand perfection. Just as I show you guys my 25 draws from concealment, you notice that I don't mess up with them 25 shots, hardly, or draws, hardly ever, because of the fact that I've practiced slow with perfection. so that I do everything the same way every time. So if I push my speeds a little further, yes, I'm going to screw up a little bit. But the thing is that you want to be perfect and somewhat fast than sloppy and really fast is what I'm saying. So, and obviously, when you're in some kind of combat or defense situation, you want to take these 8 rounds in this Bersa Thunder and you want to use them wisely. You want to use your cover and your tactics and stuff like that. This is perfectly capable of defending yourself with. Okay, just because it's a single stack, a total of 8 rounds on board, it doesn't mean that you're not capable of defending yourself with this thing. This thing is extremely accurate, extremely fast. Okay, this thing is deadly accurate. It has very little recoil, so you can get on target very quickly. The other thing about this Bersa Thunder is you can carry it like this, so you're ready to rock and roll. Just pull the trigger, okay? Long double action pull for the first, but single shot after that. Not only that, when you draw it, you got that beaver tail that can really lock your hand in here. There's a lot of people that in defense situations, they were found grabbing the gun like this, okay, trying to shoot it in a defense situation. Well, that isn't going to work, okay? But you're blocking your slide and you're clumsy with your gun. The Bersa helps you stay not clumsy, or it helps you stay proper with your grip. It forces you to have a good grip because of the beaver tail. And then also the magazine will lock that pinky. It'll lock that pinky literally in place so it doesn't go anywhere. So between the beaver tail and this right here, this gun is a combat weapon. This is meant to be in your hand. This is meant to be a martial art. The gun itself is part of the martial arts as far as defending yourself with this, because it fits in the hand perfectly for small to medium hand shooters. Big hand shooters, it might be a problem sometimes, but for somebody that's small, medium hands, this is a perfect combat firearm. Sell these for about $200 or something like that. And if you oil it, you clean it, keep an eye on it, give it the right ammunition that's reliable, and you practice your tactics with it, and you're situationally aware of your surroundings, and you practice your draws. This thing here is a really good firearm to protect yourself with. And like I said, I feel that it's a combat firearm, even though some people laugh at the 380. I feel that this thing here, that I can run with this and do really good with this. I can shoot this thing very fast and very accurate. So for me personally, it makes me pretty much somebody that's going to dominate the gunfight for the most part. And I have confidence that I'm going to win because I practice with this every day. If I'm not shooting it, I'm going to practice with snap caps, and I'm going to practice every kind of thing you can think of: double feeds, stovepipes, getting the gun back in battery, stuff like that. You've even seen my video on double feeds where I take almost most of the gun types and I show you how to clear double feeds and stovepipes really quickly and stuff like that. And every week or so, I'll intentionally set myself up with double feeds, even if I'm not on the range. I'll intentionally set myself up where I have problems with the gun and then try to remedy the situation. So that's why I feel that I'm tactically in an advantage to win my self-defense situation, because I practice all the time and I'm obsessed with getting training in with this thing, just as you would 3 times a week at a gym if you're lifting weights or something, or you're a boxer or wrestler or something. You go into the gym 3 times a week because you want to get better and you want to stay better. Same thing with a firearm. We want to keep practicing with it, getting better and better and better. Doing functions on the firearm and all that stuff is part of it. Part of that 3 days a week thing or whatever. But anyway, thank you for watching the video, you guys.